I'll never forget the moment Karen's meticulously planned HOA pool party turned into a fluorescent pink nightmare. Picture this: 100 guests, all dyed Barbie doll pink from head to toe, screaming like they just walked into a candy-colored horror flick. Karen, our self-crowned HOA queen, stood by the pool, her face a mix of rage and disbelief, clutching her clipboard like it was the last lifeboat on the Titanic. The entire neighborhood watched, phones out, as her elegant community event became the internet's favorite viral disaster. And me? I was just a guy who'd come home from a business trip to find my private pool hijacked. But trust me, what I did to Karen that day, she'll never forget it. Let me take you back to how it all started. I'm Jake, a graphic designer who's lived in Sunny Acres, a cookie-cutter suburban paradise outside Phoenix, for 5 years. It's the kind of place where everyone waves, the lawns are manicured, and the HOA rules are treated like sacred scrolls. I'd just gotten back from a grueling week-long trip to Chicago, dreaming of a quiet evening by my backyard pool, my pride and joy, a crystal-clear oasis I'd spent a fortune on. As I pulled into my driveway, I heard thumping bass and laughter. I figured maybe the neighbors were having a barbecue. But when I stepped into my backyard, I froze. My pool was packed with strangers in Hawaiian shirts and sundresses, sipping margaritas and splashing like it was spring break '98. A giant inflatable flamingo bobbed in the deep end, and a taco truck was parked on my lawn. At the center of it all was Karen, our HOA president, strutting around in a neon caftan, barking orders at a team of caterers like she was directing a Hollywood blockbuster. Karen was the kind of woman who could make a lemonade stand feel like a military tribunal. Her blonde bob was shellacked into place, her smile sharper than a steak knife, and she carried her HOA binder like it was the Declaration of Independence. She'd been running Sunny Acres like her personal fiefdom for years, slapping fines on people for unapproved mailbox colors or excessive holiday lights. I'd mostly stayed off her radar, but that was about to change. I marched over, still in my wrinkled travel clothes, and tapped her on the shoulder. "Karen, what the hell's going on? This is my pool." She spun around, flashing that fake sweet smile. "Ooh, Jake, welcome back. We're just hosting a little HOA mixer. It's for community spirit." She gestured at the chaos like it was a charity gala. "This is private property," I said, trying to keep my cool. "You can't just take over my backyard." She waved a piece of paper in my face, a photocopied HOA event permit with her own signature scrawled at the bottom. "It's all approved, per section 12.3 of the bylaws," she chirped. "We voted to use this space for the annual pool party. You weren't here, so I assumed you wouldn't mind." I scanned the paper. It was as legit as a $3 bill. Vague wording, no date, no board signatures. "This isn't a permit, Karen. It's a post-it note with delusions of grandeur. You've got 1 hour to clear out, or I'm calling the cops." Her smile didn't budge, but her eyes turned to slits. "Jake, don't be that neighbor. This is for the good of Sunny Acres. Besides, everyone's having a blast." She turned back to the DJ, yelling, "Crank up the Jimmy Buffett." I stood there, dumbfounded, as she sashayed away. The crowd cheered, oblivious to the fact they were trespassing. I could have called the police, but that'd just make me the neighborhood Grinch. No, Karen needed to be taught a lesson, one she'd never forget. And I had just the plan. But I knew Karen. She wasn't going to go quietly. What I had in store for her, it was going to be pink. It was going to be glorious. And it was going to go viral. After Karen blew me off, I retreated to my house, grabbed a cold beer, and started plotting. My pool was my sanctuary, not some HOA splash pad for Karen's ego. She thought she could steamroll me with her fake permit and smug attitude. Big mistake. I wasn't just some pushover with a pool. I dealt with bigger bullies than Karen in my freelance days. Clients who try to stiff me or change entire projects last minute. I knew how to play smart, not loud. First, I needed intel. I called up my buddy Marco, a handyman who'd lived in Sunny Acres longer than the saguaro cacti. Marco was the kind of guy who knew everyone's dirt, like who was sneaking extra trash into the community dumpster, or which house had the secret poker nights. If anyone had the lowdown on Karen's reign of terror, it was him. "Yo, Jake, you're back." Marco's voice boomed through the phone. "Heard Karen turned your pool into Margaritaville." "Yeah, and she's got some BS permit she probably forged in Microsoft Word," I said. "You know anything about her pulling this kind of stunt before?" Marco laughed so hard I thought he'd drop his phone. "Man, Karen's been running this place like it's her personal country club since she got elected. Last year, she borrowed Mrs. Delaney's gazebo for an HOA fundraiser without asking, claimed it was implied consent because Mrs. D didn't show up to a meeting. She's got a whole binder of fake rules she waves around to scare people." "Any weak spots?" I asked. "She's sloppy," Marco said. "Thinks nobody checks her work. And her assistant, Tina? That girl's miserable. Karen treats her like a personal servant. Makes her fetch coffee, type up newsletters, even walk her yappy dog. Tina might spill if you play nice." Bingo! I thanked Marco and hung up. Tina was my in. But first, I needed to build my arsenal. My plan was simple but diabolical. Turn Karen's precious pool party into a neon pink catastrophe. I'd read about non-toxic pool dye in a prank forum years ago. Food-grade stuff that turned water bright colors but washed off skin and didn't harm the pool. A quick Amazon search, some overnight shipping, and I'd have enough pink dye to make the whole pool look like a melted popsicle. But I needed backup. Enter Mrs. Rodriguez, the neighborhood's unofficial mayor. She was a retired librarian with a perm as fierce as her personality, always knitting scarves and organizing book drives. Karen had once fined her for planting unauthorized petunias, so Mrs. R had no love for the HOA tyrant. I knocked on her door, and she greeted me with a plate of tamales and a raised eyebrow. "Jake, you look like you're up to no good," she said, smirking. I laid out my plan. Sneak the dye into the pool during the party, crank up the jets to spread it, and let the chaos unfold. I'd film everything for proof and for the internet's entertainment. Mrs. Rodriguez cackled. "Count me in. I'll rally the knitting club. Those ladies hate Karen more than they hate drop stitches." By the next day, I had my crew. Marco, Mrs. Rodriguez, and a reluctant Tina, who I'd cornered at the mailbox. She looked like she hadn't slept since the Reagan administration. "I didn't sign up for this," she whispered. "Karen said it was all legal. She promised me a board position if I helped." "Tina, she's using you," I said. "Help me and I'll make sure the neighborhood knows you're not like her." She hesitated, then nodded. "Fine, but if this goes south, I'm moving to Guam." The stage was set. Karen's pool party was in 2 days, and I had my dye, my team, and a GoPro ready to capture every second. But I knew Karen wouldn't just slink away after a prank. She'd come back swinging, probably with more fake documents or some petty revenge. What I had planned next? It'd make sure she never touched my pool or anyone's property again. The morning of Karen's big HOA bash, Sunny Acres was buzzing like a beehive on Red Bull. Cars lined the street, balloons bobbed in my backyard, and the smell of grilled carne asada wafted over my fence. Karen had gone all out. String lights, a live mariachi band, and a banner that read "Sunny Acres Summer Splash" in Comic Sans. She was in her element, flitting between guests with a margarita in one hand and her binder in the other, probably quoting fake bylaws about mandatory fun. I watched from my kitchen window, sipping coffee and double-checking my gear. The pink dye was stashed in a backpack, along with a waterproof GoPro and a remote for my pool's jet system. Marco was on lookout, texting the updates. Karen's yelling at the taco truck guy for parking too close to her hydrangeas. Classic. Mrs. Rodriguez and her knitting club were mingling with guests, ready to cause a distraction. Tina was a nervous wreck, hovering near the snack table like she expected SWAT to roll in. At 2 p.m., I got the signal from Marco. Karen's giving a speech. Go time. I slipped into my backyard, blending in with a Hawaiian shirt I dug out of storage. The pool was packed, kids doing cannonballs, adults lounging with cocktails, and that damn inflatable flamingo still bobbing like it owned the place. I crouched behind a hedge, popped open the dye canisters, and dumped them into the pool's skimmer. The stuff was potent, bright bubblegum pink, like Barbie had melted in a microwave. I hit the remote, and the pool jets roared to life. The water churned, spreading the dye like wildfire. Within seconds, the pool turned a screaming shade of pink, glowing like a neon sign. Gasps rippled through the crowd. A kid shrieked, "It's Pepto-Bismol!" Adults scrambled out, their swimsuits and skins stained hot pink. The inflatable flamingo looked like it had survived a paintball war. That's when Mrs. Rodriguez and her knitting club sprang into action. They started chanting, pink pool," and tossing handfuls of pink confetti into the air. The mariachi band, sensing the vibe, switched to an off-key rendition of La Bamba. Guests were slipping on the wet deck, laughing, screaming, and snapping photos. One guy tried to dive back in, yelling, "I'm a flamingo now." It was glorious chaos, pure, unfiltered pandemonium. I hid behind a palm tree, filming every second with the GoPro. Karen sprinted to the pool's edge, her caftan flapping like a distressed parrot. "Who did this?" she screeched, her voice cracking like a teenager's. Her face was redder than the dye, and her binder hit the ground with a pathetic thud. She locked eyes with me across the yard, and I gave her a slow, deliberate wave, like I was toasting her defeat with an invisible margarita. The crowd was losing it. Phones were out, TikToks were being born, and someone yelled, "This is going viral." A teen posted a clip captioned, "HOA Karen versus the pink pool," and it racked up 10,000 views in minutes. The mariachi band kept playing, now joined by a drunk uncle who thought he could sing. The taco truck guy, clearly done with Karen's nonsense, started handing out free churros to the pink-stained masses. But I wasn't done. This was just the opening act. Karen's humiliation was live, but I needed to make sure she'd never pull this stunt again. I slipped back into my house, uploaded the GoPro footage to my laptop, and sent a copy to Marco with a note. "Get this to the board. Phase 2's coming." Because here's the thing about Karen. She didn't know when to quit. I could see her now, pacing by the pool, yelling into her phone, probably threatening lawsuits or fines. But what she didn't know? I had her fake permit, Tina's testimony, and a neighborhood ready to throw her under the bus. The pink pool was just the beginning. Karen didn't waste time licking her wounds. By the next morning, my inbox was flooded with HOA emails, each one dripping with her signature blend of fake politeness and veiled threats. The main one, sent to the entire neighborhood, was a masterpiece of delusion. Due to an unfortunate act of vandalism at yesterday's community event, the HOA will be conducting an investigation. The responsible party will face fines and potential legal action per bylaw 17.2. Thank you for your cooperation. I laughed so hard I nearly spilled my coffee. Vandalism? She was trying to spin the pink pool like I'd spray-painted her Lexus. But I knew Karen. She wasn't just posturing. She'd come for me, and it'd be petty, sloppy, and hilariously doomed. Sure enough, that afternoon, a tow truck rolled up to my driveway, followed by Karen in her SUV, looking like she just stepped out of a Real Housewives audition. I stepped outside, phone in hand, already recording. Karen marched up, flanked by a nervous-looking tow guy named Chet. "Jake," she said, her voice syrupy with fake concern, "I'm afraid your truck violates HOA parking rules. It's been on the street too long. Chet here's just doing his job." I glanced at my pickup, parked legally in my own driveway. "Karen, my truck's on my property. Try again." She thrust a crumpled paper at me, Another official HOA notice claiming my truck was obstructing community aesthetics. It had her signature and a date from 2 weeks ago, when I was still in Chicago. Chet shifted uncomfortably, clearly regretting his life choices. "Ma'am, if it's in the driveway, I can't tow it," he mumbled. Karen's face twitched like she was short-circuiting. "This is about community standards, Chet. Do your job." I couldn't help it. I laughed. "Karen, this is the saddest power trip I've ever seen. You're mad about the pink pool, so you're trying to tow a truck that's been here all week? Even Chet knows you're full of it." Chet nodded, backing away. "Yeah, I'm out." He climbed into his tow truck and peeled out, leaving Karen standing there, clutching her fake notice like it was her last shred of dignity. Neighbors were peeking out their windows, snickering. Someone yelled, "Nice try, Karen," from across the street. She spun on me, her voice low and venomous. "You think you're clever, Jake? I'm filing a vandalism complaint with the city. You'll be paying for that pool cleanup, and I'll make sure you're blacklisted from every HOA in Arizona." I leaned in, still recording. "Go for it, Karen. But you might want to check your email first." Her eyes widened, but she stormed off, her heels clicking like a countdown timer. What she didn't know? While she was playing tow truck roulette, Marco had dropped my GoPro footage and Tina's written statement into the HOA board's inbox. Tina had spilled everything. Karen's fake permits, her threats to handle anyone who questioned her, even her plan to charge the HOA for her party's catering and pocket the cash. The board was already scheduling an emergency meeting. Karen's counterattack was a swing and a miss, and now she'd handed me the perfect setup for the final blow. But I wasn't just going to win. I was going to make sure Sunny Acres never forgot it. The HOA emergency meeting was set for Thursday night at the community center, a beige box that smelled like burnt coffee and regret. The place was packed, every chair taken, people leaning against the walls, even kids sneaking in to see the drama. Karen's pink pool fiasco was the talk of Sunny Acres, and nobody wanted to miss her downfall. I walked in with Marco, Mrs. Rodriguez, and Tina, who looked like she'd rather be auditioning for witness protection. Karen sat at the front, her binder open, her face a mask of forced calm. She'd clearly spent hours on her outfit, crisp blazer, pearl earrings, hair so perfect it could have been 3D printed. But her eyes betrayed her. She knew the tide was turning. The board president, Mr. Callahan, a retired accountant with zero patience for nonsense, called the meeting to order. "Folks, we're here to address recent events involving the HOA's use of private property," he said. "Jake, you've got the floor." I stood, holding a USB drive like it was a loaded gun. "Thanks, Mr. Callahan. I'm here because our HOA president, Karen, turned my pool into her personal party venue without permission. She waved around a fake permit, ignored my warnings, and then tried to pin the fallout on me. I plugged the USB into the projector and hit play. The room went silent as the GoPro footage rolled. There was Karen, strutting through my backyard, laughing off my objections, and barking orders like a discount dictator. The crowd gasped when the pool turned pink, then erupted in laughter as guests scrambled out, dyed head to toe. The mariachi band's La Bamba blared, and Karen's meltdown played in glorious HD. Someone in the back yelled, "Oscar-worthy, Karen." I paused the video. This isn't just about my pool. Karen's been abusing her power for years. Fake rules, unauthorized fines, even trying to scam the HOA budget. I nodded to Tina, who stood, shaking but determined. "I helped Karen because she promised me a board seat," Tina said. "But she lied. She forged documents, bullied people, and used HOA funds for her party. I'm sorry, and I'll testify if needed." The room buzzed. Karen's face was the color of a boiled lobster. She shot up, slamming her binder. "This is a witch hunt. That footage is edited, and Tina's lying to save herself." But the board wasn't buying it. Mr. Callahan held up Tina's statement and a stack of Karen's fake permits. Courtesy of Marco's sleuthing. Karen, we've reviewed the evidence. You violated multiple bylaws, including misuse of authority and falsifying records. We're voting on your removal tonight. The vote was unanimous. Karen was out. She stood, grabbed her binder, and stormed out, her heels echoing like gunfire. The room erupted in cheers. Mrs. Rodriguez high-fived Marco, and Tina sank into her chair, finally free. But I had one last surprise. After the meeting, I uploaded the footage to YouTube titled HOA Karen's Pink Pool Meltdown. By morning, it had 500,000 views, with comments like, "Karen's the final boss of suburbia," and "Give Jake a medal." The local news picked it up, and Sunny Acres became a meme factory. Karen's reign was over, and her reputation was toast. Karen didn't go quietly into the night. The day after the meeting, she sent a mass email to the neighborhood, claiming she was stepping down voluntarily due to personal commitments. It was a pathetic attempt at damage control, like trying to mop the floor during a monsoon. Nobody bought it. The YouTube video was closing in on 1 million views, and her pink pool meltdown was trending on Twitter with hashtag #KarenInThePink. Then came the cherry on top. Marco got a tip from a friend at City Hall. The health department was investigating Karen's party for serving food without a permit. Turns out her taco truck wasn't licensed, and she'd ignored safety codes by overcrowding my backyard. The fine? A cool $3,000, billed directly to her. When the news hit a neighborhood group chat, Miss Rodriguez responded with a laughing emoji. A week later, a for sale sign popped up in Karen's front yard. Rumor had it she was moving to a gated community in Scottsdale, probably hoping to terrorize a new HOA. Her house sold in days to a young couple who brought homemade cookies to the next community potluck. They asked if they could join the knitting club, and Mrs. Rodriguez practically adopted them on the spot. Karen's exit was the final nail in her coffin. She didn't show her face again, no goodbye waves, no last-ditch cupcake bribes. She just loaded a U-Haul and vanished, leaving behind a legacy of memes and a neighborhood that finally felt free. The new HOA board, led by Mr. Callahan, rewrote the bylaws to limit the president's power and required all events to be approved by a vote. No more fake permits, no more pool takeovers. I got my pool back, sparkling clean and Karen-free. Marco helped me install a new lock on the gate, and Mrs. Rodriguez knitted me a pool float cozy shaped like a cactus. Even Tina came around, volunteering for the new board and earning back the neighborhood's trust. Sunny Acres was alive again. Kids rode bikes, neighbors waved, and the community center hosted a pink party fundraiser, complete with pink lemonade and a screening of my YouTube video. As for me, I was the neighborhood hero, whether I wanted to be or not. People stopped by with beers, casseroles, and stories about Karen's past tyranny. I'd won, not because I was louder or meaner, but because I'd played smart, rallied the community, and let Karen's own arrogance bury her. A month after Karen's defeat, Sunny Acres threw a block party to celebrate. My backyard was off limits, lesson learned, but the community center was decked out with fairy lights, a bounce house, and a taco truck that actually had a permit. Marco DJ'd, spinning everything from Pitbull to Patsy Cline, while Mrs. Rodriguez and her knitting club sold pink scarves for charity. The air smelled like grilled corn and freedom. I stood by the snack table, sipping a beer, when Tina walked up, holding a plate of cupcakes. "No poison, I swear," she joked. "I just wanted to say thanks. You could have thrown me under the bus, but you didn't." "You made it right," I said. "That's what counts." She smiled, and for the first time, she didn't look like she was bracing for a Karen ambush. The crowd cheered as Marco dedicated a song to Jake, the guy who turned our pool into a legend. I groaned, but Mrs. Rodriguez dragged me onto the dance floor, where the knitting club taught me a cha-cha that nearly sprained my ankle. As the sun set, I looked around at Sunny Acres, neighbors laughing, kids chasing fireflies, and not a single HOA binder in sight. We'd taken our neighborhood back, not with fists or lawsuits, but with a prank, a plan, and a community that finally remembered how to stand together. Karen had underestimated us, and that was her biggest mistake. The YouTube video hit 2 million views that week, spawning remixes, reaction videos, and even a local band's cover of La Bamba called Pink Pool Blues. I got emails from strangers across the country, sharing their own Karen stories and asking for advice. I didn't want the fame, but I couldn't deny it felt good to know we'd inspired people to fight back. The block party wound down, and I helped Marco pack up the speakers. He grinned, tossing me a stray pink balloon. Think Karen's learned her lesson? I laughed. Not a chance. She's probably out there terrorizing some poor condo port in Scottsdale. He nodded. Well, if she comes back, we know how to handle her. I tied the balloon to a chair and looked out at the neighborhood, glowing under the stars. Sunny Acres was ours again, and we'd keep it that way. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that Karen wasn't done. Somewhere in a gated community with too many palm trees, she was probably plotting her next move, her binder ready, her smile sharper than ever. And if she did come back, well, I'd be waiting, with a new prank, a better plan, and a neighborhood that knew exactly how to send her packing. If you like this story, please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. And we also recommend listening to the story about how a Karen organized a wedding in my yard without permission. So, I invited a gang of bikers to, well, you can listen to the rest of the story. Just click on the icon pointing to the arrow. Thank you for watching.